So today I'm just going to be watching a video that I have no idea what it is. Before I watch it, let's hope it's not prawn. Or should we hope it's prawn? Before I get into today's video, do be sure to like, share, subscribe, all of those things so that I can keep making these videos and your nose won't fall off. That was weak. That was a weak one. Anyway.
There was a lawyer once. His name was Francis Scott Key. He penned a song that I'm sure you're aware of. You've seen it. It's in most hymnals throughout our churches. It's called the National Anthem. It is our song as an American. We go, however, to a ball game. We stand in our church services and we sing the words of that song, and they float over our minds and our lips, and we don't even realize what we're singing. Most of us have memorized it as a child, but we've never really thought about what it means. Let me tell you a story.
That's interesting because as an Irish person, our national anthem is As Gaeilge in Irish language, and we learned about all the meaning of the words in school, but to be fair, not being a fluent Irish speaker, I definitely don't think about them every time I sing it.
Francis Scott Key was a lawyer in Baltimore. The colonies were engaged in vicious conflict with the mother country, Britain. Because of this conflict and the protractedness of it, they had accumulated prisoners on both sides. The American colonies had prisoners and the British had prisoners. And the American government initiated a move. They went to the British and they said, let us negotiate for the release of these prisoners. They said, we want to send a man out to discuss this with you. They were holding the American prisoners in boats about 1,000 yards offshore. And they said, we want to send a man by the name of Francis Scott Key. He will come out and negotiate to see if we can make a mutual exchange. On the appointed day in a rowboat, he went out to this boat and he negotiated with the British officials. And they reached a conclusion that men could be exchanged on a one-for-one basis. Francis Scott Key, jubilant with the fact that he'd been successful, went down below in the boats, and what he found was a cargo hold full of humanity, men. And he said, men, I've got news for you tonight. You're free. He said, tonight I have negotiated successfully your return to the colonies. He said, you'll be taken out of this boat, out of this filth, out of your chains. As he went back up on board to arrange for their passage to the shore, the admiral came and he said, we have a slight problem. He said, we will still honor our commitment to release these men, but it'll be merely academic after tonight. It won't matter. And Francis Scott Key said, what do you mean? He said, well, Mr. Key, he said, tonight we have laid an ultimatum upon the colonies. Your people will either capitulate and lay down the colors of that flag that you think so much of, or you see that fort right over there, Fort McHenry? He said, we're going to remove it from the face of the earth. He said, how are you going to do that? He said, if you will, scan the horizon of the sea. And as he looked, he could see hundreds of little dots. And he said, that's the entire British war fleet.
Oh.
He said, all of the gunpowder, all of the armament is being called upon to demolish that fort. It will be here within striking distance in a matter of about 2.5 hours. He said, the war is over. These men would be free anyway. He said, you can't shell that fort. He said, that's a large fort. He said, it's full of women and children. He says, it's predominantly not a military fort.
Oh, I assumed it was.
He said, don't worry about it. They said, we've left them a way out. And he said, what's that? He said, do you see that flag way up on the rampart? He said, we have told them that if they will lower that flag, the shelling will stop immediately. And we'll know that they've surrendered, and you'll now be under British rule.
I didn't know this story.
Francis Scott Key went down below and told the men what was about to happen. And they said, how many ships? He said, hundreds. The ships got closer. Francis Scott Key went back up on top and he said, men, I'll shout down to you what's going on as we watch.
Oh my gosh.
As twilight began to fall, and as the haze hung over the ocean as it does at sunset, suddenly the British war fleet unleashed. He says the sound was deafening. There were so many guns that there were no reliefs. He said it was absolutely impossible to talk or hear. He said suddenly the sky, although dark, was suddenly lit. And he says from down below, all he could hear the men, the prisoners, saying was, tell us where the flag is.
God.
What have they done with the flag? Is the flag still flying over the rampart? Tell us.
That's what they cared about?
1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours into the shelling. Every time the bomb would explode and it would be close to the flag, they could see the flag in the illuminated red glare of that bomb, and Francis Scott Key would report down to the men below, it's still up. It's not down. The admiral came and he said, your people are insane. He said, what's the matter with them? He said, don't they understand this is an impossible situation? Francis Scott Key said he remembered what George Washington had said. He said the thing that sets the American Christian apart from all other people in the world is he will die on his feet before he'll live on his knees.
Wow.
The admiral said, we have now instructed all of the guns to focus on the rampart to take that flag down. He said, we don't understand something. Our reconnaissance tells us that that flag has been hit directly again and again and again, and yet it's still flying. We don't understand that.
What?
But he said, now we're about to bring every gun for the next 3 hours to bear on that point. Francis Scott Key said the barrage was unmerciful.
What, were they just protecting the flag?
All that he could hear was the men down below praying. The prayer, God, keep that flag flying where we last saw it. Sunrise came. He said there was a heavy mist hanging over the land, but the rampart was tall enough. There stood the flag, completely nondescript, in shreds.
How?
The flagpole itself was at a crazy angle, but the flag was still at the top. Francis Scott Key went aboard and immediately went into Fort McHenry to see what had happened. And what he'd found had happened was that that flagpole and that flag had suffered repetitious direct hits. And when hit had fallen, but men, fathers, who knew what it meant for that flag to be on the ground, although knowing that all of the British guns were trained on it, walked over and held it up humanly until they died. Their bodies were removed and others took their place. Francis Scott Key said what held that flagpole in place at that unusual angle were patriots' bodies. He penned the song, "Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming? Or the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there."
Not my flag, but Jesus.
Oh, say, does that Star-Spangled Banner yet fly and wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? The debt was demanded. The price, it was paid.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light?
It's a banger of a
What's
tune.
so proud
It's one of the best anthems.
at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Wow, when you know the meanings. Crazy.
Parts we watched were so gallantly Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Wow, I mean, on the face of it, I would always say the American national anthem is like one of the greatest songs. We have Our Own Naveen. Our Own Naveen is the Irish anthem, and it's the soldier's song. And interestingly, it's also about coming up against the English. Jeez, guys, you got around. But I had no idea what the American anthem actually meant. I just knew it was a great song and that pop singers get the honor of singing it really beautifully at a lot of sporting events. Do you know, I'm really glad I watched that and that I know what it actually means now. I got quite emotional there, even though it's obviously not my flag or my anthem. And I think more so it was for me just like the triumph of the human spirit in general, rather than national pride, because obviously I'm not an American person. I'm really glad I watched that video. I'm really glad I know, and that going forward I will always know what the anthem actually means. So I'm going to do a couple of very special shout outs today, and the first one goes out to Kimber. She wants to use her shout out to acknowledge all of the wonderful people who give up their time and energy to help animals who need rescuing and support. People like those who work for the ASPCA, the DSPCA and the Dogs Trust Ireland. Of course, this is something very close to my heart, and Chewy gives his seal of approval too. Fittingly, the second shout out goes to Jason Moyer. Jason wants to thank the staff of the Carrowmont Heart and Vascular Centre. Everyone there took excellent care of him during his heart surgery earlier this week. It was one of the best experiences he's had, and he's now had 15 heart surgeries. He also wants to thank his fellow patrons for their support this week within the community. We're all really glad you're on the mend now, Jason. Thank you so much, Kimber and Jason, and I hope the rest of you all mind yourselves. Have a great rest of your week. Bye. Oh, what's the thing rattling? Oh, it's my ear. I got this thing because some of you were complaining about the audio in this room. It's a big room. Sorry, this is going to sound weird now. Hello. I'm just getting used to it, so sorry if the sound isn't perfect. I'm doing my best. Hello.